Hey guys, it's the Metal 5. I cannot believe that this has just happened. I reached 5,000 subscribers. This beginning part is gonna be so cheesy, I can tell, but thank you guys so much for this. I say this every time, but I never expect to get this far. I was even stuck at around the 4,720 to 30 area for so long that I thought I'd never get past that. I never think highly of my videos, or anything I make for that matter, as whenever I've uploaded, I expect some or a lot of people to hate the video, even when it comes to something minor like me noticing an audio track playing several milliseconds before it's supposed to. So simply reaching 100 and then 1,000 subscribers was already mind-blowing enough. But realizing that there are 5,000 people that seem to like listening to my obnoxious voice and immature sense of humor, can tolerate me uploading a bunch of videos that they probably aren't interested in, and can even deal with me being a pervert for some reason, is just the most surreal experience of my life. It actually makes me feel better about myself knowing that I can entertain people. Whether that is laughing with me or at me, I don't know. As I started getting subscribers more frequently after reaching 1,000, I decided to only do another subscriber special if I reached 5,000, because I feared that doing it every 1,000 might be hard to keep up with, and 5,000 just seemed like the next logical milestone. So as for the video itself, this is an idea I've had for a long time, but thought it would be perfect for something like this. As my avatar and username is Robot Master related, I chose to make my top 10 favorite Robot Masters, which wasn't easy as there are a ton across the Mega Man series that I really like. The only guidelines is that any Robot Master from across every Mega Man game is eligible, and the reason why they made it on the list can include anything from their design, their boss fight, their weapon, their level, anything. But there is one exception to that rule. I'm excluding Metal Man from this list because, as you guess, he is my favorite Robot Master just because of the metal blades. And it's not like one of those plot twists where the user's avatar is actually second on the list or anything. He's straight up my favorite, so it wouldn't be exciting to watch. So, removing Metal Man from the equation, here are my top 10 favorite Robot Masters. Nitman! I made my feelings about Nitman very clear in my Mega Man 6 LP. He's the British Robot Master of 6's international theme, so there's some clear bias right there. But I'm very glad with what they went for with the British theme by making it a knight because, think about it. A robot knight. That's just cool. I really like his bulky, hardened design with the dark blue armor, his equipped shield that he's actually smart enough to utilize in battle, and that he has a mace for a hand which can shoot out and pull back with a chain. This extends to Nightman's weapon, the Night Crusher, which is one of the most effective weapons in Mega Man 6. Acting as a boomerang weapon, it is able to be fired in 6 directions and will always return to Mega Man, allowing it to do some pretty crazy things if you keep moving the whole time, and is also good at dealing with shielded enemies as it can easily strike from behind or wherever else they are unguarded. Kind of weird that I don't utilize this weapon more than I should. I also quite enjoy a lot of the gimmicks found in Nightman's stage, which is essentially a conveyor belt, bouncy balls, and spiked ceiling traps. Though I do wish that some of them did get a bit more fleshed out. Also, despite the stage obviously being a castle, it is called the Capital of Science for some reason. Plus, the boss fight is pretty easy. Even if you don't have the weakness, it's not that much of a challenge, as he has very telegraphed and a limited number of attacks. But still, when the game was supposed to be about an international robot tournament, in my eyes, Nightman always comes out on top. Nitro Man! Mega Man 10 probably had my favorite overall selection of Robot Masters, at least when it came to designs, and speeding in first on this list is the discount transformer, Nitro Man. On top of its sleek and radical appearance is his ability to transform into a motorbike and race around the battlefield. While this was first done with Turbo Man, who is a strong contender for the list, I just think motorbikes are far cooler than cars, even if I don't have the balls to drive one myself. The main draw of why I like Nitro Man is simply because of the transformer aspect of his concept. His fast nature is reflected in his stage, which takes place on a motorway where the main gimmick is speeding lorries that attempt to run over Mega Man, forcing the player to make use of fast reflexes to avoid being struck by the lorries themselves or dodging any other hazard that may spring up as you hitch a ride on them. Though the stage does also incorporate a creative use of multiple pathways with the option to head above the road where it is generally safer but harder to reach, or you could just make use of the clever way the developers had Nitro Man's weakness, the chill spike, affect the lorries. This also appears in his boss battle. One thing I really liked about Mega Man 10 was that most weapons had multiple functionalities. You could freeze him with the initial shot, but that doesn't do as much damage as letting it become spikes on the ground and having him run over it, meaning that it still requires you to have skills in dodging his attacks. The multiple functions are also present in his weapon, the Wheel Cutter. It is a powerful saw blade that travels along the ground with up to 3 on screen at a time, and can also be used to scale up walls. My only criticism I would have on Nitro Man is that I think having the large motorbike front on his chest kinda takes away a bit of his cool factor, even with his color scheme and helmet mostly making up for that. Magic Man! I bet you weren't expecting a Mega Man and Bass Robot Master on this list, were you? Well, I haven't actually played the game myself because I have no real way of doing so. Magic Man was always a Robot Master I took a strong liking towards, so I felt like I had to include him on the list. Despite never speaking, Magic Man's actions alone show that he's full of personality for the brief amount of time that you probably see him, especially if you use his weakness. He's a very classy individual as backed up by his design, which I think has this great merge of being elegant and mysterious. What with the general magician look and being built as if he's wearing a suit with a massive bow tie, combined with a standard masquerade mask which has a layer of coolness to his look, combined with his stylish magic cane and playing card shoulder pads. As he's a magician, he's very show-off in the way he behaves during his boss fight, through both his entrance and the fact that all of his attacks are based around magic tricks. And his in-game bio stating he dislikes revealing his secrets, further playing off his personality and theme. Plus, he's one of the few Robot Masters in the series that can recover his health in the battle if he hits you with his weapon, the Magic Card. Magic Card is a very simple weapon. It can be fired across a short range to the side or straight up, passes through walls, and can pick up health and weapon energy to bring back to you. But it's a godsend if you're playing as Mega Man, since the game is so badly designed around him mainly due to enemy and platform placement. With this, you can at least deal with the enemies that are clearly more designed for Bass to deal with. However, his stage is a bit underwhelming, as it might as well be a remixed version of Clown Man's stage. I would have liked something more magic-based like a stage show or a massive illusion, but Magic Man himself makes up for it. Especially for not trying to grope Mega Man. Blade Man! I think a lot of people can get an idea why I really like Blade Man. He's a robot that's made of swords! We already had Sword Man, but I guess Capcom really wanted to expand on that idea and was like, fuck it, just throw a bunch of swords together and that's our new Robot Master! In a similar vein to Nitro Man, there is a small part of Blade Man's design that comes across as goofy that takes a tiny bit away from his cool factor for me, but I just love the concept of the design and how it was executed for the most part. Plus, I don't know why, but the purple color scheme seems to work really well for his visual appeal. Capcom also seemed to have some extra swords to spare, as Blade Man's strategy for fighting is to latch onto the walls and shoot 3 swords towards Mega Man, 2 or 5 if you're playing on easy or hard mode respectively. Really liking how they reflected his slimmer body by making him super agile. His weapon, the Triple Blade, has quite a bit of utility too. Just like Blade Man, you can shoot 3 swords at once in a spread shot pattern, with there being 2 variations. If you're on the ground, then you fire the swords diagonally up, while in the air, they're shot diagonally down. Pretty good for dealing with multiple aerial foes or enemies positioned on staircase-like structures, and can potentially kill shield attackers too. Ironically, his stage doesn't have much to do with blades though, aside from obvious spikes and flying axes. This is another stage that takes place in a castle, and has a mini-boss fight against a small, sentient fortress, but its main gimmick is a seesaw. I don't know what that has to do with Blade Man or his stage's theme, and honestly I can find it kinda tedious to use, mainly due to how long the sections involving this mechanic can last. In the end though, you still get a pretty cool robot master and weapon out of it. Napalm Man! Acting as my gateway into what Napalm actually is, Napalm Man is pretty much on this list just because of his design. Appearance-wise, he is effectively a walking tank with a vaster arsenal. The top half of his body is practically covered in weapons with 2 large napalm bomb launchers for arms, missile launchers on his shoulders, and a big old missile launcher right on his head. He's even got tank treads for feet that he oddly does not use in his boss fight, instead just jumping around. However, he does unleash his full arsenal onto you, so it seems that most aspects of his design got incorporated into the gameplay. Plus, like with Blade Man, I really like the purple color scheme as I think it makes him look cooler for some reason. His boss battle has what I believe to be a right mix of challenging, but still easy to follow for each Robot Master's limited set of attacks. He launches his attacks pretty fast, but you can get the timing for when to dodge them decently fast, and with the right strategy you can get him into a lock by repeatedly making sure to stand next to him when he lands so that he fires his easier to dodge napalm bombs. Speaking of which, the napalm bomb is his weapon. Mega Man 5 is widely known for not having a very good selection of Robot Master weapons, and while I argue that there are some whose usefulness is often overlooked, Napalm Bomb is not one of them! It's so awkward to use as while it's powerful, you fire it at such a short distance away and along the ground no less. I only use it against Stone Man and occasionally the Mets in his stage. And while I like the theming of Napalm Man's stage after learning of the similarities between it and the Vietnam War just because of the surprising amount of detail they put into it, I don't find it the most fun stage to play and even frustrating at times. This goes to show how a cool design is sometimes all you need to get me to like something. Tundra Man! When first getting a glimpse of Tundra Man's design, I thought he looked pretty cool, no pun intended, but I expected him to have a serious personality. That couldn't have been further from the truth. Tundra Man is fabulous! He's super flamboyant with very flashy and effeminate quotes and tricks that he loves to show off due to being an ice skater. His personality alone is what got him onto the list, since I love really stupidly over-the-top and flamboyant characters because I find them pretty funny. He's like a rose, frozen in ice! What helped to secure his spot at this high on the list is because of how frickin' helpful I found his weapon to be. The Tundra Storm normally creates a cyclone that damages enemies above or below Mega Man, with stronger enemies that survive the attack getting frozen. That's already useful enough for some of the trickier platforming sections and freezing the tougher enemies who often have vulnerability during certain animations. And it has a fairly decent amount of ammo too, but the Power Gear version of the weapon turns it into a screen nuke, damaging all enemies on screen in return for using more weapon energy. I found both forms of the weapon, but especially the Power Gear version, to be a godsend for so many parts of Mega Man 11. Mainly the fiery wall of instant death in Torchman's stage during the last part where the game expects you to have perfectly precise reaction times, and the early Wily Castle stages. Making me very glad that I ended up being Tundra Man 4th through my weird order on my first playthrough. As for his own stage, for once, it's an ice level that I kind of enjoy playing for the most part. As while the mini-boss is annoying, I don't think they pull too many jerkish enemy or spike placements given the ice physics, and the final section with the blizzard I found legitimately fun. The same applying to his boss fight when dodging his skating, and listening to its music in my own time made me really like it. Impact Man! Behold! Impact Man! Just like with Tundra Man, this was another case where the personality I expected based off the design, in this scenario expecting a hardened warrior mentality, but got something completely different that I love. Impact Man also made it onto the list purely because of his personality. He's quite boisterous and comedic with his quotes, more so the delivery of them, and are my favorites out of all the Robot Masters in 11. The way he behaves never fails to put a dumb smile on my face, and I can't help but play along and quote his stupid quips that he makes throughout his boss fight, where I'd say he's probably the hardest of all the Robot Masters in the game, even with his weakness, as he can stun you whenever he lands on the ground, which you need to constantly remind yourself about. Onto his design, I already quite liked it to begin with, but seeing it attached to such a fun sounding character made it even better. He might just be my favorite looking out of all the construction-themed Robot Masters in the series, given his very large and bulky body combined with his color scheme and the spikes protruding out of both his arms and his head. Kinda reminds me of a jackhammer, even though the spikes aren't the right shape. Plus, I like the extra detail they put in of him actually being made up of 3 smaller piledriver robots known as the Impact Brothers, which took a while for me to notice. On the subject of piledrivers, that is precisely what his weapon is called. While I personally don't like this weapon as much as the Tundra Storm, nor did I feel I needed to rely on it that much, I do like its uniqueness for letting Mega Man perform a dash and air dash, whilst also being a strong weapon even for shielded foes. Harkening back to 10's multifunctionality with many of its weapons, which does play a part in me liking it so much. Impact Man gives me hope for what sorts of fun personalities they could give Robot Masters in the future. Commando Man! Thankfully not being based on the concept of not wearing underwear, Commando Man takes the large, bulky body of Impact Man and combines it with the walking tank idea from Napalm Man, but goes all out with it. He might as well be an actual walking tank given his appearance, color scheme, and especially those giant cannons he has for arms, which makes him look so badass. Plus, his bulkiness gets further amplified by his massive torso and shoulders. Admittedly, half of the reason why he's this high up on the list is because of the design, as he has a perfect blend of looking cool and tough. When making Robot Masters of my own, I use Commando Man as the template for my first one since I'm uncreative. In his fights, similarly to Impact Man, he creates earthquakes that stun you whenever he lands from a high jump, in addition to firing his weapon, the Commando Bomb. This is the other half of the reason why he's here. The Commando Bomb is basically the Crash Bomber, but on steroids. It fires a bomb that can destroy walls, but the direction the bomb travels can be altered mid-flight to make it easier to hit enemies. The bomb explodes on impact with an enemy or surface, and upon a wall, floor, or ceiling, it will create a powerful blast that travels a short distance along the surface to give you more room for error if you miss your target. In fact, the traveling blast makes it more powerful than just the bomb itself, so it's actually a better thing to be slightly off of your accuracy. The only Commando Man related thing that bothers me is that his stage can be kind of frustrating at times. It takes place in a desert for some reason, and the main gimmick is Darude Sandstorm, which pushes Mega Man. This can be fun, but if you're not used to timing your jumps, it can turn the pacing of the level to a crawl, or just make it really easy to bump into enemies and hazards. However, it doesn't feel that long. Galaxy Man! Galaxy Man is amazing, and nothing will change my mind on that. While his design may not be as cool as some of the previous Robot Masters on this list, I think it is cool enough to ranking decently on this list at the very least. I like the UFO theme with his appearance, alongside his digital and particularly metallic look to him to coincide with his space theme. Plus, he can straight up transform into a UFO and fly, so that's cool too. But a big factor of Galaxy Man's appeal towards me is his stage, because it is awesome. It has a sweet aesthetic and color to it, with a lot of nice looking exclusive enemies, and a fun gimmick with the teleporters. The only level of potential frustration this stage can give is the claw enemies that drag you along and possibly into spikes, but I feel like the game gives you a good heads up in some cases, and if not, you still have time to react with the necessary jumps to safety. Then there's the music. I love the music in this stage. It's easily the best one in Mega Man 9 because it's so goddamn catchy and energetic. With his fight, he is the easiest Robot Master in 9 in my opinion, which is part of the reason why I always take him out first whenever I play 9. But the other part is to do with his weapon, the Black Hole Bomb. This is my favorite weapon after the Metal Blades, because it is so strong and so helpful that I can't imagine playing 9 without having it as soon as possible. You start off by firing an orb that you can slightly control the direction of. Then, when you press the fire button again, you create a black hole where the orb is currently located. Once the black hole is created, all nearby small to medium-sized enemies and projectiles are sucked in and destroyed, with large enemies taking a decent amount of damage. On top of the awesome concept of creating a black hole, this weapon's area of effect is a lot bigger than it appears, making it so useful for taking out tons of enemies at a distance, especially ones that infinitely spawn, with them likely dropping a lot of health and weapon energy to keep you going. I love everything about this ability because it's made so many enemy-ridden sections much less stressful. No wonder they used it for the startup of Mega Man's Final Smash. Now if only they could have remixed Galaxy Man's theme too. Shadow Man! A lot of people had probably seen this coming already, even with me excluding Metal Man from the list, as Shadow Man is the closest thing to Metal Man without being Metal Man. But that isn't the only thing that secured his place at the #1 spot. Stating the obvious when it comes to his design, he's a ninja. I love ninjas and ninja characters because they're always so cool, dark, mysterious, and badass, with so many awesome weapons, outfits, and techniques, and all the basics of this are incorporated into Shadow Man's design and his fighting style, with the spin-off games and other forms of media even expanding upon his personality and ninja theme by giving him more ninja-related abilities and even more fleshed-out ninja designs. That alone made him one of my favorite robot masters, but then comes his weapon, the Shadow Blade, which is just an inferior metal blade. It can be fired in 5 directions as opposed to the Metal Blade's 8, and it has a short range with a boomerang effect while the Metal Blade travels the full screen. But just like the Metal Blade, it has a massive amount of ammunition, which you are highly unlikely to run out of given enemies dropping weapon energy, and it is very strong. The only reason why I don't like this weapon more than the Black Hole Bomb is because of the short range. I think it could be a little bit longer and still not be overpowered, but it at least lets you throw shurikens. I'm not joking, that's actually part of the reason why I like this weapon. In his boss fight, he fittingly has very agile movements, which makes him the hardest one in Free, given that he can instantly go into a slide with no heads up, and his Shadow Blade lets him shoot 2 shurikens that travel the whole screen. Even his weakness still makes the fight challenging because the topspin is shit. You have to let yourself get hit to hit him with it, and its weapon consumption is random. Almost every playthrough, I have the topspin go from being almost full to completely empty, forcing me to fight him without the weakness. I like the challenge and attention to detail with his theme, but the shittiness of the topspin affects my view of it. Also, his stage is in a sewer for some reason. He's not a ninja turtle, but I do find it fun for the most part, with the only annoying bit being those jumps where you practically have to be on the edge of the platform every single time. But the music is really nice, which I gained a much greater appreciation for when listening to the amazing Smash Bros. Remix that is criminally underrated. So with the main draws of his appeal being the ninja theme and how it was executed, his design, his weapon, and how he's a diet Metal Man, makes Shadow Man my favorite robot master that isn't Metal Man.